Hello everyone, and welcome to the how-to video on Rolling Renovations. Rolling Renovations is a brand new print and play game that can house 1 to infinite numbers of players, runs around 30 to 60 minutes, and is simultaneous play, so that time does not increase based on the number of players. The game requires 2 dice, regardless of the number of players, a blueprint sheet for each player, and a pencil for each player, preferably with an eraser. The game is broken up into 3 phases. Phase 1, the construction phase, where you build out the floor plan of your house. Phase 2, the furnishing phase, where you fill those rooms with items and useful furniture. And then the scoring phase, where you compare what you've built to the competition. The game is more complex than that when you actually get into the details, so let's dive in. I'm going to zoom in on here, and we will show you Phase 1. Phase 1 has 2 columns. You can see here. We have column 1 and column 2. The first column is designed to determine the size of your room. 8 squares being literally 8 squares on this grid. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. That could be an 8 square room. You can decide the actual dimensions or the shape of your room, but you have to stick to the size designated by the die. The second column in Phase 1 is the requirements and determines additional features that the room must contain. Exterior corner means that you have to actually basically designate windows on one corner of that room. Exterior walls cannot be built out of. Number 2 is overlap, and that kind of represents these quadrants that you're seeing here, 1 and 2, divided by a line. The more quadrants this room overlaps, the more point value it is. So here you can see 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, and 4 points. You would get 4 points from this room just from the +1 overlap rule here. Half size means you cut the actual size by half. So, for example, 10 is now equal to 5, so your room size is 5. +5 is the opposite of that. That 10 is now +5, so the room size is total of 15. No walls or no long walls is kind of a reverse of a lot of what you might assume. You start with 5 points in the room, and then you subtract the longest wall. So if you had a room, let's say, that was this big, you would compare the total longest wall. So here you can see these are 2, 2, 1, 1, 2, and then we have a 4 here. This 4 subtracted by 5, the total point value of this room currently is a 1. And you would dictate that by putting a 1 here. Similar to the overlap, you might say 4 here, so that you know in the future that that room gave that point value. And then island determines basically similar to exterior wall, except imagine all 4 sides must be disconnected. Normally with a room, you have to have at least one wall attached to another wall, but islands are the anomaly to that rule. So let's just kind of imitate one round right now. Roll 2d6. Every player takes this die roll and uses it to build out their house. So a size 3, it's a size 12 room. 1, it's an exterior corner. So that is fairly easy. Generally speaking, you're going to want your room to accommodate as many of these quadrants as possible, and that's for Phase 2. So let's kind of just do that. So 12, I like to put a little dot to indicate that this counts. 1. So this might be an odd-shaped room that you're seeing here, but the benefits to it is that it hits multiple quadrants, and it allows for flexibility for other rooms to be placed connecting to quadrants in the future. Now it must be an exterior corner, so let's just kind of draw these lines to imitate windows, so nothing can ever be built on that part. And that's essentially one round of Phase 1. You would do this 5 to 10 more times, or 4 to 10 more times, depending on your setup, but that is essentially what a round would look like. Let's kind of move on to round 2, or Phase 2 in this case. Phase 2 uses 2 die just like the last one, but instead, the first die represents what of these quadrants the room is designated in, and then which type of room you might be building. So for example, if the first die was a 2, the room would have to be contained also in 2. In that case, this one is because of right here. And then let's say you rolled a 3, that would be a living room, so you're building out a living room. Then you will have to furnish it with said items. So let's just do that. Let's roll and see what we get. A 3 and a 1. So it has to be in quadrant 3. Notice we don't have a room there. In the event of a 5 to 10 round game, you probably would, but let's say you don't. And then a 1 is a kitchen. So this is where some alternate rules come into play. You'll notice under scoring, there's a bonuses and penalty section. Under there, there's this thing called dice adjustment penalty. As a player, you can choose to kind of manipulate the die for you. It doesn't affect other players, but let's say you have a 3 here, you need to get it to a 2. You can do a dice adjustment and decrement that die by 1. And so for you only, this is now considered a 2, which means it works in that room. You can do this multiple times, so if this room was only in a 1, you could decrement twice, but there is a penalty to that. It starts at -0, -1 the second time you do it, -2 the third time you do it, and so forth and so forth. So we now have the correct room, and we have a kitchen. Looking down here, it might be a bit overwhelming at first, but there is always a guide in the rulebook that kind of helps you understand this a little bit better if you're having some difficulty. The kitchen has a variety of items that can be placed in it. Anything with an asterisk basically means it's mandatory. It's not really a kitchen if you don't have a stove and a sink and a fridge. The dark lines represent the item that you're actually going to be drawing. You can actually draw it as you see here, or if you have some difficulty with drawing, you could always put some kind of indicator of what it is. Maybe S for stove, F for fridge, SI for sink, or something along those lines. This arrow represents a walkable space. So a dark area, like this one, is a solid item, but you have to have people be able to get to it. Somebody has to stand in front of the stove. Walkable spaces are nice because even though it technically counts as part of the item, so for example here, and you make this the walkable space, it can be overlapped with other walkable spaces. So you can put a fridge here and also have that be the walkable space as well. Each item does have a label, so you can see stove, fridge, sink. But you also might notice that there might be a sink 1 and a sink 2. You can only ever have one item in a room. It doesn't provide any additional point value to have 2 stoves or 3 stoves. So instead, there are some things that do benefit from having multiple. Oftentimes a kitchen will have 2 sinks, one for dishes and drying, a food prep. A couple's bathroom might have 2 sinks, etc. In those instances, we do mark it sink 1 and sink 2. There's also some granularity as well in the fact that you might see the same name multiple times. Shower, shower, and shower. The purpose of this is you still only can have one shower, but the size of that shower is different. A standing shower, if you've ever been crammed into one of those apartments where it's only a standing shower, a regular bathtub shower combination, or one of those full showers that you can see in like master bedrooms and some other areas. So you can still only have one shower, but it gives you multiple options for that. And what does this all mean as far as like why would a standing shower be worse than another shower? How does that work in the point system? Well, that's where these rows come into play. Each one of these rows is worth a different point value. Row 1 is worth 1 point, row 2, 2, and row 3 is 3. This may be subject to change as playtests happen, but that's generally how it's set up now. So a standing shower is only worth 1 point, a bathroom shower, bathtub combination, 2, and the full shower is worth 3 points. So moving up, we have our kitchen here. That needs a stove, a fridge, and a sink at the bare minimum. Those should be easy enough to accomplish. You can put a stove facing the window. You can put a sink right next to it. This is kind of where you wish you had built something a little bit differently. Because if this was 3 long, I could put the sink and stove on either side of each other and share that walkable space. Unfortunately, the way I built this doesn't really accommodate that now. But, thinking about it a little further, I could mix it up a little bit. Nothing prevents me from putting the stove here, having a walkable space here, and then I can put the fridge right here, and that can share that walkable space. Now the question is, what do I do here? We do have counters, so I'm going to put a counter here and use the walkable space. So take note, the arrow placement does kind of matter. We do have a better guide for this in the rulebook itself, but this is just a helpful guide. If the arrow is on a line, it kind of means either one of these, so it could be here or here. If it's in the center, it means it's going to literally be that full square, so basically this is the full setup. There is some more granularity as well. For example, corners represents this square, so this square must be walkable. And then, kind of similar to that, we have these sides, which basically means any of this can be walkable. You also have longer ones, so this has to be walkable. And the rulebook kind of explains all that better. So, we have a countertop, we have a sink, we have a stove, and a fridge. So we can't put another countertop because we don't have any more of those. And the rest of this stuff takes up quite a bit of space. So to me, I feel like that's all I can really fit in here at this time. So let's kind of count this up. 1 for the fridge, 1 for the sink, 1 for the stove, and 1 for the counter. So this is worth 4 points. If I had grabbed, let's say, the longer counter or a second sink, actually, I can put a second sink in there. Let me do that. And notice that second sink is in the second row. So instead of being 4, this is now worth 6 points. And, thinking about it further, I can take the long counter, which only requires 2 in either, so I can do here and here, and I can do the stove here. There we go. So now, 2 for this, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're now worth 7 points for the total room. And that's kind of the granularity that Rolling Renovations is going to have. Now, that's kind of phase 2. I like to keep track of the score as you do it, but you don't have to. You can also have additional bonuses here. We already saw the dice adjustment penalty, but there's others, such as Master Suite. So this is if a bedroom with a king-size bed is connected to a bathroom with a shower that isn't connected to any other place. There's the bathroom with a shower plus a shared space. So this is a bathroom that is connected to a shared space room, and that is defined in the rulebook, but a kitchen, living room, or dining room are considered shared spaces. Unique room type. Basically, anytime you have at least one of these rooms, you can increase the unique room type. Bedroom with a shared space. This is kind of based off the trauma of trying to find apartments in Boston. The amount of bedrooms that you had to go through another bedroom for, where you had to go through a shared bathroom or something along those lines to get to the bedroom, is astounding, and I feel like people should be rewarded to not have that be a problem. So any bedroom that is connected to a shared space. And then the non-garage island. Basically, if there's an island that's disconnected from the rest of the house, you don't want to have to walk there to get to your living room, but you don't mind your garage being there. So you get a penalty each time you have an island that is not a garage. So that is the basic rules of Rolling Renovations. You combine all the scores together, and you compare it to your people, and whoever has the high score wins. Once again, the Kickstarter is currently live if you're watching this in February or March of 2024. If it's past that date, please check the comments or the description below to see any updates. And that is all. Have a great day.